Well, good morning, everybody. It is so awesome to be in Tennessee. I was hoping for a little cooler weather, I got to be honest with you. But we'll take it this morning. I walked out of the hotel and I'm like, I think I feel it. I think I feel the chill in the air. So I left my jacket on because it's cold here. It's cold here. So, well, thank you, man. It is so awesome to be here. And Pastor Devin and Ashley are just such dear friends to Sarah and I. And just so honored to get to take the journey of ministry and leadership together with them. And your pastor has been a part of our Next Level coaching for several years. And is just such a valuable asset there and friend relationally, but also, and you may not know this, but Devin, just this last summer, I think, right, in the last few months, has been coaching one of our coaching groups called Making the Jump, which is a 7-session deal online, and so where we kind of lay the foundation of principles of how organizations grow, how churches grow, and so we asked Devin, your pastor, to step into that, and so I think we had 7 or 8 different, 10, maybe 10 even pastors from across the country who log on every couple weeks. It's a video deal, and they log on, and so your pastor has been hosting that. So you guys are making a difference, not just here in Mount Juliet, but you're making a difference across the country. Yeah, it's awesome. So it is great to be. It's great to see friendly faces as well. It's always fun to see friendly faces. The Stutzmans as well as the Kleinmans, longtime members of Next Level, and in Fort Myers, Florida. So let me tell you a little of our story. So my wife Sarah and I were born and raised in the Midwest in Indiana, just north of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And I tell everyone, Fort Wayne is a great place to be from. And everybody's got to live somewhere, and I'm glad I live in Florida now. So, and you get that because you live in a really cool place, too. Pastor Devin was driving me around yesterday and kind of giving me the tour. We were sitting at lunch at Don Poncho's, and I go, where are we? Exactly, because I came straight from the airport, the hotel. He picked me up, we went to lunch, and it was like, where are we now? And he's like, well, let me give you a tour. So he drove me all around and showed me this and the whole thing. He's like, and that city's there, and this one's here, and the thing, and the deal, and Gallatin, and the 109, and 840, and I'm like, got it. Crystal clear. I drove myself to church this morning. What's up? So anyway, so my wife stopped distracting me. Okay, so I have ADHD. I took my pills, so we'll be fine. Fear not. Fear not, I am medicated. I talk fast though, but I am medicated, so everybody's going to be okay. So here's the deal. My wife and I were born and raised in Indiana and moved to Southwest Florida, Fort Myers, Florida, 15 years ago. This January will be 16 years that we moved there, and really just had no clue what we were doing, but God had put a big dream in our heart to plant a church, to start a church, and to see God do something big in that region, the region of Southwest Florida in the U.S. And what an incredible, adventurous, fun, exhausting, terrifying, horrible, amazing, grand, and awful ride it has been. But it's not all been that fun. But no, it's been awesome. It's over the last 15 years to see what God has done. Where we came from, you know how the Apostle Paul wrote in Scripture, he said, they extended to me the right hand of fellowship. Well, when we moved away from Indiana and moved to Fort Myers, they extended to us the left foot of fellowship. Anybody know what I'm talking about? They had a leader in my life, Billy Hornsby, the founder of the Ark. He used to call it the Y'all Go Ahead ministry. Where you tell somebody your vision, the thing that's in your heart, and they're like, y'all go ahead, right? Don't call us, we'll call you. And that's I'm still waiting for them to call, actually. And so we moved and we were just clueless, had no clue what we were doing, but a big dream from God in our heart. And it was Sarah and I, and then we had one son at the time. We have 2 boys now, Will and Drew. They're 17 and 14. They drove themselves to homecoming last night. Oh, I know. It's like parents of teenagers, you know, like your prayer life. Like you think you know how to pray, and then your kid gets his license, and you're like, oh, dear Jesus, I know nothing of dependence on you, Lord. Right? It's crazy. So Sarah and I moved 15 years ago to Florida, and just really no clue what we were doing, but God had put a big dream in our heart. And so, long story short, we started our church on Mother's Day, May the 12th, 2002, in a movie theater. And so it was very much like this, portable church, and we spent 4 years in that movie theater, and God was faithful. We launched with one service, and eventually got added to those who were called Next Level Church their home until then we went to 2 services, Kleinman's. That's when you started coming to Next Level. You remember the movie theater days. They remember. Dirk and Tabitha remember. And so then after 4 years, exactly 200 Sundays, but who's counting? 200 Sundays, we moved to a brand new $40 million, listen to this, state-of-the-art high school that the state of Florida built for us. And it's cool. All we had to do was let them have school in there Monday to Friday, give them a little bit of money, and set our equipment up and take it down at the end, and it was totally a church. I'm like, that's the best idea I've ever heard in my life. So when we left the movie theater, we were averaging about 280 to 300 on a good Sunday in between 2 services. And the only reason I'm telling here's the numbers tell a story, they never tell the whole story. But because behind every number is a name and a story of a life change, and so the only number that really matters is 1. 1 soul saved, 1 young person reached, 1 teenager rescued, one single mom given hope, 1 marriage, encounter with Jesus. Like it's all about the 1. But for sake of the story, so you can kind of track with our journey over the last 15 years of my life and kind of get to know me in a hurry. So we moved out of there. We were averaging about 300 in attendance, and we moved to the high school, and we spent the next 5 years portable in a high school just like this. And so I was telling Pastor Devin and the team, this is my favorite, man. We have 3 locations now, and that's cool, and the whole deal. But man, there's something about portable church that I love, and God uses it. God uses a place like this, a space like this, where literally hundreds of young people come in and day out. You have the ability in this place to set and change the spiritual climate of this school. You can change the spiritual climate of a city by changing the spiritual climate of young people. And that's what you're doing. So listen, your presence here is not just about what happens on Sunday. The Spirit of God is in this place, and it will last. Come on, we know the Holy Spirit. He'll last all 7 days of this facility. And so guess what? This is awesome. I love it. Let me tell you, this is way better than anything we ever did. I'm just telling you, this is awesome. So God is here. And so over those 5 years of being portable in the high school, we again went from 1 service and then back to 2 services. And by the time we moved out of the high school, we were averaging just under 1,000 people in weekly attendance. God had done amazing things. And I could tell you story after story after story. So it was 6.5 years ago, Easter of 2011, that God opened the door for us to purchase our first permanent facility. That's known as our Fort Myers location now. And so we moved in there, and God just, it was one of those, we were an overnight success, 9 years in the making. You know what I'm talking about? Come on, anytime you think there's an overnight success, there's always a story behind the story. There's always blood, sweat, and tears that we don't see. And we look on and we go, oh my goodness, it was like they come out of nowhere. Hey, guess what? That's what this community is going to say about Connect Church. They already are. It's starting to buzz. It's starting to happen, isn't it? It's starting, as the more present you are, as you're out there serving your city, as you're out there loving on people, having conversations, inviting them into a space like this, guess what happens? The word starts to buzz. And then all of a sudden, a year or 2 or 3 or 5 from now, they'll go, oh my gosh, Connect Church. And you're like, yeah, we know. We're already in on it. Right? So that's what happened with us. So anyway, we moved to our permanent facility, and basically we doubled in 9 months. It was just crazy what God did. We went from just under 1,000 in weekly attendance at the high school, and within 9 months there were over 2,000 people, and it was an idea whose time had come. And that's what I believe God is doing with Connect Church. And so I just believe today that being here, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you with our story. So 3.5 years ago, we built another building 20 minutes away, a second location. And then a year ago, we launched in a movie theater. So we're back portable again. And every time I go to the Coconut Point movie theater, that's where they are, I always tell them, I'm like, you guys are my favorite. Don't tell the others. Like, I just love it. I just love portable church. I'm home. I'm home. I don't have to look at the camera. This is awesome. I love it. So anyway, all right, stop getting me distracted, you guys. I'm trying to preach. Okay, turn with me, click with me. 1 Samuel chapter 9. 1 Samuel chapter 9 is where I want us to look today, because I believe the Lord has put a word in my heart and in my spirit as I've been praying for you over the last several weeks, knowing that this weekend was on the map and it was on the horizon, it was coming. And I actually had a different message. I actually sent notes ahead a couple of weeks ago. And then just this past, I think, Tuesday, I felt like the Lord redirected me to this message for you, for your team, and for you as a church. And so 1 Samuel chapter 9, is the story of God calling a guy named Saul to become the first king over Israel. And so any of us who are familiar with Bible study, familiar with biblical history, you know that Israel in the Old Testament was God's people. And so up until this point, Israel had basically not had a king. They had a prophet, a speaker. They called him a seer, a prophet of the day, who kind of was the spokesperson for God. And so when it came to leadership or decision making, they would look to the prophet. Well, in those days, Samuel was the name of the prophet who kind of led. Well, what happened was God's people, the children of Israel, started looking around at all the other people groups and nations around them, and they all had kings. So they started coming to Samuel going, hey, we want a king. We want to be like everybody else. Peer pressure. How come we don't have a king? We want a king. They have a king, and look, they're doing fine. We want a king. We want a king. We want a king. And Samuel's like, trust me, you don't want a king. You don't want a king. And they're like, yeah, we do. And it's like this bad tennis match. It was like, we want a king. No, you don't. Yes, we do. No, we don't. It was like a fight with your teenager. And so finally Samuel goes to the Lord and is like, what do we need to tell him? And God's like, you know what? Fine, give him a king. So 1 Samuel chapter 9, where we pick up the story, this is the moment where God is going to choose the first ever king over the people of Israel. That's a big deal. And the guy that God was going to raise up and choose was Saul. Let's begin reading. 1 Samuel chapter 9, starting in verse 1, says this. There was a Benjamite, a man of standing, whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of another guy, the son of another guy, the son of Benjamin. Okay, the point is, a guy named Kish, he's about to have a son named Saul. Verse 2. Kish had a son named Saul. There, pick up the story. Boom, we're back. Ready? Well, sometimes you can get distracted with all the lineage stuff, and it's like, hey, don't get distracted. A guy named Kish, verse 2, had a son named Saul. There's the guy that we're going to key in on. Look what it says. As handsome a young man as could be found anywhere in Israel. Ladies, he was hot. And he was a head taller than anyone else. So my man is not just good, he is tall, dark, and handsome. It's unbelievable. It's some guys, you know, are you kidding me? You work with what you got, brother. That's what I'm saying. Good for you, Saul. It's awesome. Okay, we're going to pray over the spirit of jealousy right now. Here's the deal. Here's what I want us to see. From the beginning, Saul was something special. And let me just pause for a second before we go any further, and this is not in the official notes, but I just want to encourage so many of us today, because it's possible that you've come into this church today and you have lost sight of, or you have forgotten how special you are in your Father's eyes. And you just need to know, God created you in His image. That you are a son and a daughter of God. And you are a head taller than all of your contemporaries in some area of your life. And God made you that way. So maybe you've got this voice in your head that just keeps pounding on you, that you're not special, that you're just run-of-the-mill, that you're just average, you're just ordinary. But can I tell you, that is a lie from the pit of hell. And the devil would love nothing more than to get every one of us distracted, believing a lie that we're nothing special, that we're not as smart as our brother, that we're not as good as our sister, that we're not as pretty as, that we're not as talented as the sales guy down the hall, that we're not something. And I believe God sent me here to remind you today, hey, you are head and shoulders taller in whatever area God's made you in to be that, because He needs you to be that. You got to know that. From the beginning, Saul was something special. And you and I, every one of us listening today, are something special. However, before Saul became the first king over the nation of Israel, he had to go on a special mission. Look at verse 3. Now, the donkeys belonging to Saul's father Kish were lost. And Kish said to his son Saul, take one of the servants with you and go and look for the donkeys. So watch this. Before Saul becomes the king of Israel, he has to go on a mission from his dad to find some donkeys. I like to call it a donkey mission. Anybody ever been on a donkey mission? Anybody relate to that? Put yourself in the story for a second. Imagine being Saul, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, Mr. Head and Shoulders above everybody else, Mr. Destined for greatness, Mr. Anointed, Mr. Awesome, Mr. Confident, Mr. About to be the first king. And your dad calls you in and is like, hey, son, I lost a few of my donkeys, and I need you and a servant to go look for them. Seriously, Dad? You want me to do what? Do you not know that I'm awesome? Do you not know that I'm kind of a big deal? Like, no, like, check me out. Like, look at the resume, Dad. I'm in just a few hours or days or weeks or months or at most a couple of years, Dad, I'm about to be the king of the country, man. So, with all due respect, I'm not really up for this donkey mission. And yet, before Saul became the king, before the palace was a donkey mission. Ever been on a donkey mission? As I look back over my life, there are countless times where God took me on a donkey mission. I was raised in an incredible home, had incredible parents, and when I was a teenager, 15 or 16, I received Christ. I was invited by my girlfriend then, she's my wife, you marry that girl, invited to her church, her dad was a pastor, and so she invited me to an Easter musical, and at 15, over Easter weekend in 1991, I gave my life to Christ. And freshman year of high school, and just radically transformed, and just boom, that following summer felt a call to ministry, and so here I am at 16 years of age, just knowing that God has it for me. And over the next several years, leaders would speak into my life, and Matt, you're going to change a generation, and you're going to lead, and you're going to blah, right? All these, you're going to just be amazing. And I believed that, and I could sense that in my spirit as well. God had called me to pastor, that God had called me to lead leaders, that God had called me to write, and I knew I had these callings, this big vision inside of me. Well, guess what? Do you know where it all started? Long before there was Next Level Church, long before there were books that I've written, long before there were 3 locations and blah, blah, blah. It started when I was a teenager. Shortly after I had gotten saved and felt called to ministry, my father-in-law, the pastor, called me in and he said, hey, we have this junior high, middle school, Sunday school class that we need a teacher for. And it meets out in the back trailer behind our church. You remember the ones. You guys, it smelled like an old person's home. It had the green, no, true story. You lie, you fry, right? Like, true story. It had the green shag carpet. And these were in the days, Devin, you remember, you had to suit up, man. So here I am, 16 years old, 17 maybe, going to Kmart, getting me a suit with a bunch of buttons and way too big off the shoulders. And I'm walking in, 8:30 a.m., the Bible hour, to preach to 8 middle school kids who could have cared less. Donkey mission. Donkey mission, right? I mean, I think about when we moved to Southwest Florida again today, Next Level Church. Woo! Okay, awesome. But man, back then, it was nothing. We had $9,200 to our name, which is not a lot of money to start a church, by the way. Even back then, it's not a lot of money. And so we knew we had one son, I mentioned that, Will, at the time. And so Sarah and I made the decision that she would stay home with Will and that I would go get a job. And so here I am, 25, almost 26 years of age, or 26, almost 27, and going to get a job. And you guys, we knew nobody except for one family. And we were literally, when your resume is nothing but ministry experience, newsflash, you are certifiably unemployable. And so I applied everywhere. Gas stations, Target. I remember the interview at Target. They're like, well, Matt, it looks like your resume here is all, ministry experience. Why aren't you doing something in your field? Well, I am, but I can't tell you that because I need a job. So there was one family that we knew, the Fessels, and they owned a jewelry store. And I went to them and I'm like, hey, you guys, apparently I'm unemployable, but I need a job and I'm honest, which turns out being honest matters a lot in the jewelry business. No, for real, write that down. It matters. And so thank God for Richard Fessel, who gave me a job for $11 an hour, working behind the scenes every day at this jewelry store, just changing watch batteries and sizing rings and just, donkey mission. Yeah. Donkey mission. Called to preach. Called to change the world, change a generation. Hey, can you change my watch battery, bro? Maybe. The lowest point of humility is when you have no jewelry skills. And I'm like, oh, give me the watches. I can at least change the watch battery. And then about 1 out of every 10 watches would be some sort of tricky mechanism. And I would have to go to Richard Fessel and be like, hey, I can't get it. Amazing. Ever been on a donkey mission? Ever been on a donkey mission? Here's Saul, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, Mr. About to be King, sent on a donkey mission. So he grabs his servant, verse 4. So he passed through the hill country of Ephraim, through the area around Shalisha. They did not find him. They went on into the district of Shalim, but the donkeys were not there. Then he passed through the territory of Benjamin. They still didn't find him. Four truths. Maybe you want to write this down. 4 truths about donkey missions today. Here's the first one. Number 1, donkey missions will test our patience. Donkey missions will test our patience, won't they? Here is Saul, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, Mr. About to be King. Soon. And it says that he went from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, to this hill, to this valley, to this district, to this village, to this thing. And he was gone a long time. This donkey mission that Saul was on was long. It was boring. And honestly, it wasn't even going well. He didn't even find the donkeys. They looked in 4 places, hadn't found anything. See, the problem in our world today, in our culture today, even in our Christian culture today, is that we want to go from calling to palace in minutes, maybe hours. What? I'll give it 60 days. No, I'm patient. I'll give it 60 days. We do that, don't we? We want to go from wedding day to amazing marriage instantly. We want to go from married couple with no kids to great parents. We want to go from called by God, went to Bible college, hired on in a church, to, well, Pastor, I'd like to speak into everything now. It's okay. We want to go from MBA to C-suite in a moment. But that's not how it works. And I just feel like there's some of us who are listening to me today, and you've allowed your expectations to be shaped by this instant sort of microwave culture, right? Any of us ever gotten frustrated because it takes too long to warm up food in the microwave? Like 4.5 minutes? Who has time for that? But that shaped our culture. It shaped the next generation. It shaped us, hasn't it? And even in the Christian world, we're not immune to this. We want to go from called by God to put out our first album. Slow down. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to take a while. I have a talk that I do when I teach young leaders sometimes. And it's, the name of the talk is, if I could have lunch with my 26-year-old church planting self, what advice would I give myself now, 16 years later? And one of the things that I say in that talk is, if I could have lunch with my 26-year-old church planting self, I would look myself in the face and I would say, Matt, everything you're dreaming in your heart right now, it's going to happen. It's going to come to pass. God's going to show up. It's going to be miraculous. It's just not going to happen as fast as you think it will. But it doesn't mean God's not in the donkey mission. Some of us need to hear that today. Hey, that dream in your heart, God knows. He's got you. That big vision from God, that urgency thing you got going on, yeah. It's okay. God knows. God's got you. Just be patient. Settle in and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Donkey missions, they will test our patience. Verse 5, when they reached the district of Zuph, another place, Saul said to the servant who was with him, come, let's go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkeys and start worrying about us. All of a sudden, Saul, he goes from one village to the next, to this district, to this hill, to this thing. No sign of the donkeys. And all of a sudden, Saul's ego kicks in. And all of a sudden, he goes, you know what, man? Man, we've been at this for a long time. And you know what? I don't have to remind you, I'm kind of a big deal. And so, you know what? We probably should just give up on this donkey thing and just go home. You know why? Because I'm such a big deal that, like, Dad's probably going to stop worrying about the dumb donkeys. And he's actually, like, he's going to, because I'm the center of the universe. He's going to be worried about me and my safety. Guess what? There are moments on the journey of following Christ that our comfort, our safety, our feeling good about it all isn't God's number one priority. Sometimes God will send us on a donkey mission. Verse 6. The servant replied to him. So Saul looks at the servant and is like, man, I think we should go home because I'm a big deal and Dad's going to start worrying about me, the center of the universe. And the servant replied, look, in this town there's a man of God. He's highly respected and everything he says comes true. Let's go there now. Perhaps he will tell us what way to take. Okay, so what's going on? So Saul looks at his servant and is like, you know what, man, we need to just bail out. Let's just give this thing up. Let's just quit this donkey mission. This is stupid anyway. I'm a big deal. And the servant goes, you know what? Actually, there's a prophet in the land, Samuel. Actually, there's a big dog prophet. And he's actually in the town that we're in right now. You know what? Maybe we should go there and ask him. Look what Saul says, verse 7. Saul said to his servant, if we go, well, what are we going to give the man? Like, we don't, okay, the food in our sacks is gone. We don't have anything. We've no gift to take the man of God. I mean, what? He instantly starts making excuses. What? Oh, well, I don't have any money. And you know what? My boss didn't even resource me well enough to be able to get the job done. How am I supposed to find these stupid donkeys if I don't even have any money to give to the guy to get in the entry fee? He's making excuses. Verse 8. The servant answered him, look, I have 1/4 of a shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God so that he will tell us the way to take. Thank goodness this servant had planned ahead, and he's like, you know what, man, even though you're out of money, I got you covered. I'll pay the entry fee. We'll be fine. Number 2, write it down. Donkey missions keep us humble. Donkey missions keep us humble. Okay, put yourself in the story. Here is Saul, this tall, dark, and handsome, head and shoulders above everybody else, about to be the first king of Israel, sent on this donkey mission, can't find him anywhere, wants to give up, and his servant's like, you know what, man? Let's go talk to the biggest prophet in the entire nation. Turns out he and his buddies are doing a meeting thing today in the city that we happen to be in. Let's go ask him if he can help us find our donkeys. Okay, that would be like Rick Warren hosting a private lunch in Mount Juliet. And you and I busting into that meeting and being like, hey, Rick Warren, we lost our donkeys. Has the Lord spoken to you about our donkeys? I mean, they're not my donkeys, they're my dad's donkeys. How humiliating, right? To come rolling in, Rick Warren, Bill Hybels, Andy Stanley, they're all hanging out. And you're like, sup, boys? Hey, you guys seen my donkeys? Donkey missions will humble us, won't they? Donkey missions have a way of keeping us humble. So the servant says, hey man, maybe we should go. Saul makes up these excuses and he's like, okay, you know what? You're right. Fine, let's go ask Rick Warren about my dad's donkeys. Verse 10, good, Saul said. Come, let's go. So they set out for the town where the man of God was. Verse 11, as they were going up to the hill to the town, they met some young women coming out to draw water, and they asked them, is the seer here? They call the prophets the seer. He is, they answered. He's ahead of you. Hurry now. He's just come to our town today, for the people have a sacrifice at the high place. Verse 13, as soon as you enter the town, so this is kind of the Google Maps of their day. They asked the ladies, and the ladies were like, okay, go up here, take a left, take a right, up the hill, turn left, take a thing, down. Okay, quarter of a mile, you're there. I'm sure they sounded like Siri. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. The people will not begin eating until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Go up now, because you're going to find him about this time. Watch this. Number 3, donkey missions will test our motives. Donkey missions will test our motives. So here are these guys. Remember, put yourself in the story. Saul and his servant have been at this a while. 2 good-looking, young, strapping, attractive men have been on a mission away from other people for quite a while. They come rolling into this town, and who do they come upon? Sup, ladies? It says some young women come walking by. And in that moment, Saul and his servant have a choice to make. Are we really going to go humble ourselves in front of Rick Warren and the prophet and the deal? Or should we just stop and have some lunch? Let's go get some barbecue, ladies. My name's Saul. I'm looking for some donkeys. And the servant's like, motorcycles, you stupid. Tell them they're looking for some motorcycles, right? Like, all of a sudden, here they are on this donkey mission. It's not working. They're not being successful. They're about to go be humiliated in front of the prophet of the land. And what happens? Temptation hits. And listen, more people, more followers of Jesus with huge upside potential lose their way in the middle of donkey missions than you can possibly imagine. Because there we are, walking around going, this is pointless. This is stupid. I've been pigeonholed. My boss doesn't care. I'm being passed over. They're looking past me. I got all this upside potential, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody cares. They haven't even resourced me well enough to get my job done. Forget it. Apparently, it's not working. More people with so much upside potential for God give up on the greater mission because they feel like what they're going through in the donkey mission isn't working. And at this point in the story, Saul has a decision to make. Is this donkey mission more important than hanging out with these ladies? And how many times have we seen this? How many times have we seen people quit a job, quit a ministry, quit a small group, quit a serving outreach opportunity, quit a marriage for an affair, quit a lifestyle of generosity and tithing? Why? Because it looks like in the moment it's not working. Even quit a church. So many times people do this all the time because we feel like we're giving ourselves to something that isn't bearing the kind of fruit that we thought it should. Well, I thought I'd be further along by now. just a donkey mission. Hold tight. Hold tight. Because as we're about to see, God is in the donkey mission. Verse 14, they went up to the town, and as they were entering it, there was Samuel coming toward them on his way up to the high place. Verse 15, look, now the day before, everybody say the day before. Now the day before Saul came, the Lord had revealed this to Samuel. So verse 16 tells us what God said to Samuel the day before, while Saul is out pointlessly looking for his donkeys. Ready? About this time tomorrow, I'm going to send a man to you from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him ruler, king over my people, Israel. He will deliver them from the hand of the Philistines. I have looked on my people, for their cry has reached me. So the day before, while Saul is on this pointless, awful, not going well donkey mission, God at the same time is speaking to Samuel that tomorrow you're going to intersect paths with a guy that is going to change this nation forever. Fast forward back, verse 17. When Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, this is the man I spoke to you about yesterday, and he will govern my people. Number 4, we're talking about truths of a donkey mission. Number 4, donkey missions are always about something bigger than just donkeys. Donkey missions are always about something bigger than just donkeys. At the exact time that Saul is on this seemingly pointless donkey mission, God's speaking to Samuel about him. Connect, church. Listen, we just never know, do we? When our donkey mission and our greater mission are going to collide. We just never know. And donkey missions are the very thing that God uses to prepare us for our greater mission. Over and over and over. And donkey missions are the very thing God uses to lead us to our greater mission. We just have to stay humble enough and patient enough and faithful enough to trust God while we're on them. So, 3 challenges. 3 challenges for us today, because I have a feeling that there are a whole bunch of us who are listening right now who find ourselves on a donkey mission. Challenge number 1, stop spending so much time worrying about your greater mission and just start being faithful to your donkey mission. God's got you. It's okay. It's okay. Well, what's next? And what about? And some of us were worriers, and we're so worried about that and the 10-year plan, and then I'll do this, and then I'll get this degree, and then I'll go here, and then 2.5 kids, and a white picket fence. It's okay. It's okay. Just stop worrying so much about the greater thing and just be faithful where you are. Number 2, challenge, don't let anything be beneath you. Don't let anything be beneath you. You know, the fastest path to promotion in God's economy is serving. And I love looking around this church this morning. I got here early watching the teams get this place ready to have church. And seeing the dozens and dozens and dozens of servants who are willing to do whatever. When I walked in the front doors, by the way, your pastor had a vacuum sweeper. And he was sweeping. He didn't even hear me and see me come in. And he's just sweeping. Getting it ready, because this is God's house. This is God's house.
Yeah.
No, brother, it's a high school. No, brother, it's God's house.
Yeah, that's right.
The fastest path to promotion in God's economy is serving. Serve the donkey mission of the Father and watch how God will line it up with your greater mission. And then final challenge to you this morning is this. Stop seeing things as pointless and start seeing them as practice. I've learned to adopt this mindset because so often the mundane things of our life, we can put them in the pointless category, can't we? But what if the mundane things of our life are not pointless? What if they're actually just practice? So I have a quick story. So I've written 3 books. Up to Middle Church was like 9 years ago.
And then God of the Underdogs was 4 years ago, 2013. And then 2 years ago, 2015, I wrote The Key to Everything, which is about teachability. And so, well, in short, I stunk at interviews. Like radio people and whatever, TV people would call, they'd want to interview me about the book. And so I was not good at it. Like I'd get all nervous and I'd be like, blah, blah, and I just like, I would like, it was just bad. So when Key to Everything came out, I just adopted this phrase in my head that every interview I did, I was like, it's just good practice. It's just good practice. And somehow that worked for me. Like it just calmed my nerves. It's just good practice. It's just good practice. It's just good practice for the future. It's a good practice for the future. So the first interview I ever did for Key to Everything, my publicist at the time set it up. It was in Orlando. I drove up, and it was at this big Christian book deal. And so there's this booth that was for family talk radio, blah, blah, blah. And so I walk up, and I sit down. It's supposed to be an hour interview, right? And the whole time I'm like, it's good practice. It's just good practice. Oh, so this will just be good practice. This is good practice. This is good practice. And so the woman who interviewed me, her name is Dr. Meg Meeker. And maybe some of you who are running the James Dobson circles and family talk radio know that name. She speaks on Dave Ramsey's stage often. She's kind of a big deal. Okay, I didn't know that. And so it's just good practice. And so Meg and I sit down for this 60-minute interview where she is interviewing me. Are you kidding me? And so the whole time it's just good practice, good practice. Okay, so the interview goes fine and whatever, right? So we get done. And this is James Dobson's radio program, by the way. And big picture of James Dobson behind her, right? And so we get done with the interview. We took some pictures, and I shook her hand, and I looked at her. She said, hey, you did a good job, thank you. And I said, yeah, well, thanks. It's just good practice. And she goes, over 1 million people will listen to this every day. 1 million people will listen to our conversation we just had. And I'm like, it's not all practice. Okay, but to the point. It's not pointless. It's practice. And it's crazy. When you look at the stats on Amazon for Key to Everything, there's one day, like January 17th, and it's like, right, everything's way down here, and then it's like, bam! You know what it was? It was the day that thing played on James Dobson. I'm like, here's the deal. Hey, mom, who feels like changing 8 to 12 diapers a day is pointless. Your unconditional love is teaching your kids about their Heavenly Father. Hey, business person who feels like you've been pigeonholed, it's not just pointless. Start seeing what you're doing right now as practice. It's a divine setup for what God has for you. So here's what I want to do. I want to pray before we move on with the remainder of our time together today. And I just believe it's possible that there are many of us who've come into this room today and connect. And you feel like some area of your life is on a donkey mission. I believe that as we pray, God is going to begin to make himself real to you in new ways. And what you've been looking down on, what you've been viewing as pointless, what you've been rolling your eyes at, God's going to put a supernatural thing inside of you, a grace for this season, where you'll start to see every day that your donkey mission is leading you to your greater mission. Amen.